Welcome to your deep dive. It's Thursday, April 3rd, 2025. Bright and early, 6 a.m. You're probably just getting your day started. We thought we'd bring you a focused look back at yesterday, April 2nd, the biggest stories that broke right here on our news channel.
Yeah, good morning.
So think of this as, your early morning briefing. Before you even have to think about the news yourself, we're going to give you those essential insights and connections you might have missed, help make sense of a busy news day. And we've got a pretty interesting mix this morning, touching on everything from I don't know, the cosmos to cars and even some blockbuster movies.
Yeah,
Okay, let's unpack what yesterday held.
exactly. And the aim here isn't just to rehash those headlines, but to really dig a little deeper into these events from April 2nd and understand, what they might mean for you, the bigger picture. We're going to look for those knock-on effects and see if we can spot any links between these seemingly unrelated stories that, our news team uncovered. And as always, our reporting yesterday drew on a range of sources: the Associated Press, specialist tech publications, box office analysts, you name it, trying to give us that well-rounded view of the day's key developments.
Right, so let's start by looking up, way up, the James Webb Space Telescope, still delivering those just incredible images from deep space, captured some new data on Asteroid 2024 YR4. Now, this particular space rock, it caused a bit of a flutter when it was first spotted, didn't it?
It did, yeah. When astronomers first identified it late last year, initial calculations suggested a very small, around 3% chance of, a potential Earth impact in 2032. Naturally, that kind of news tends to get people's attention.
Wouldn't it? Incoming? The end is nigh. But thankfully, as is so often the case with these cosmic near misses, the story evolved. So what did further investigation reveal?
Well, you hit the nail on the head there when you talked about the story evolving. That's the beauty of scientific observation, isn't it? It's iterative. So as more data was gathered, including these latest images from Webb, the scientists were able to refine their models. The result: the probability of an Earth impact in 2032 has now been reduced to virtually zero. So sleep soundly tonight.
That is definitely good news. I was, a little worried there for a second. But there is a slight, postscript, right, to this whole celestial story. Slightly different target, maybe, in the crosshairs.
Yeah, there is. While our home planet appears to be in the clear from 2024 YR4, there remains a very, very slight possibility of an impact with the moon in 2032.
Yeah.
So, a little less dramatic, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, no need to panic. But crucial to understand is the low probability. Still, though, it serves as a reminder that, the population of near-Earth objects requires, vigilant tracking. This particular asteroid, by the way, makes a relatively close approach to our sort of neck of the woods roughly every 4 years. So we'll be seeing it again.
We will. And these new Webb telescope images weren't just about recalculating those odds, were they? They actually gave us kind of a better sense of this asteroid's actual size.
Absolutely. So the images released yesterday allowed for more precise measurements, and that confirmed that asteroid 2024 YR4 is about 200 feet across. To put that in perspective, that's roughly the height of a 15-story building. What's also quite remarkable is that this marks the smallest object the Webb telescope has ever successfully observed. So really showcasing the incredible sensitivity of this instrument.
Right. And, our news report yesterday, they highlighted that astronomers are seeing these observations as, really valuable practice, even though, this specific asteroid isn't a major threat anymore. So why is that so significant?
Yeah, that's really important. Even when that initial concern kind of, fades, the process of actually observing, tracking, and analyzing an object like 2024 YR4, it gives us this, invaluable experience for dealing with those potential future threats, right? There's that famous saying by Dr. Eleanor Helen. She was a pioneer in near-Earth object detection. She used to say, finding them is the first step, understanding them is the second, and knowing what to do is the third. And this Webb observation, it really helps us with that critical second step. Think of it like a pilot in a flight simulator. They're practicing various scenarios so they are prepared for real-world challenges.
Right.
This is our version of that, the cosmic safety drill.
So it's about honing our techniques, improving our ability to spot and assess those truly hazardous asteroids down the line. Kind of like future-proofing our planetary defense system in a way.
Precisely. I couldn't have put it better myself. And it's worth noting that both the cutting-edge Webb telescope and our existing ground-based telescopes, they both contributed to tracking 2024 YR4. So this collaborative effort using different types of observational tools gives us a much more comprehensive understanding. And what's really fascinating here is how those, initial anxieties, they can be significantly eased and clarified simply by acquiring more data.
Hmm.
Really underscores the vital role of continued investment in space science and these planetary defense initiatives.
Right. Okay. Let's shift gears a little bit. We've been looking way, way up. Let's bring it back down to Earth. Something a little bit closer to our daily lives, the technology inside our cars. Yesterday saw a really interesting announcement from Google regarding, their Android Automotive platform. So tell us, what is brewing in our dashboards these days?
Right. So Google has developed a production-ready
Hmm.
and, importantly, customizable Dashcam application designed specifically for vehicles running on their Android Automotive operating system. Now, for those of you who might not be super familiar, Android Automotive is a full-fledged operating system,
Hmm.
directly integrated into the car itself. It's not just, your phone mirrored onto the display.
Right. And our news report yesterday, they pointed out that many of these cars, despite having, these sophisticated built-in camera systems, they surprisingly lack a native dash cam app. Seems like a bit of an oversight, doesn't it, in modern vehicles?
It does at first glance, yeah. You're right. A lot of new cars today are equipped with multiple cameras for, all sorts of things. Parking assistance, lane departure warnings, automatic emergency braking. But the software to continuously record these feeds as a dash cam, it's just not been widely implemented by manufacturers.
Yeah.
And this has left a lot of drivers, who want that added security and peace of mind. They've had to go out and buy these aftermarket dash cam devices.
Yeah.
So it is a bit surprising.
Right. So this new Google app, it's aiming to bridge that gap, essentially unlock a feature that, the hardware in many cases it already supports.
Exactly. So they created this application specifically for the Android automotive environment. It's designed to tap into the car's existing camera systems, which, like you said, are already there.
Hmm.
It does this by utilizing kind of standard communication protocols within the operating system, things like EVS, Extended View System, or Camera 2 API. Think of these as like standard languages that allow the Google app to talk to the car's cameras.
So the cameras are there. It seems like the question is, what's been the hurdle? What's prevented this kind of integrated dash cam functionality up until now?
Well, that's a good question. Hard to say definitively, but our reporting suggests it's probably a few factors. Car manufacturers, they might have had their own priorities for software development. Maybe they were focusing on other features first. There could also be, some technical complexities related to integrating with all these different camera systems across their models. And then there are, of course, the legal considerations, data privacy, storage, and even just, business decisions. Maybe they thought, well, we'll offer this as a differentiating feature later on.
So it's not just like, I can't just go to the Play Store in my car and just download this app, can
No,
I?
you can't. And that's because it requires such deep integration with the car's core systems, the camera hardware, all of that.
Mhm.
So it needs what are called system-level permissions. What that means is car manufacturers, they're going to have to actively incorporate this app directly into their own implementation of Android Automotive. It's not going to be a standalone app that, consumers can just download and install themselves.
Right. I mean, that makes sense from a, security and functionality standpoint, definitely. But what about the storage? Where does all this video footage go?
Well, by default, it'll be stored in the car's internal memory. However, Google is strongly recommending that car manufacturers also provide an option for users to save that footage to some sort of external removable storage, like an SD card or a micro SD card. It's a smart move because, internal storage in vehicles is limited, and this way it's easier for drivers to, access and manage all those recordings.
And it sounds like car companies are going to have a fair bit of flexibility in how they actually implement this dashcam feature.
Yeah, they will. It's described as, production ready and customizable. So that means manufacturers get to decide, how much storage they want to allocate for the recordings, how long the footage is kept before it's overwritten, and they can even customize the look and feel of the app's user interface, to fit in with their branding. So interesting to see how different manufacturers take advantage of that.
Yeah, I mean, it raises the question, will this move by Google lead to just more widespread availability of these integrated dash cams in cars of the future? I mean, it seems like a pretty logical step, and it would, potentially enhance safety and provide, really valuable evidence in case of an incident.
It has the potential to become much more common, yeah. You're right. By offering this ready-made solution, Google has kind of lowered the bar for manufacturers. So whether or not they choose to adopt it widely, it's going to depend on their, individual product strategies and their priorities, but it certainly makes these built-in dash cams much more likely to become a standard feature in the future.
Right. Okay, let's pivot now, pretty dramatically. Yesterday also brought some major developments on the trade and economics front. President Trump announced a set of really sweeping new tariffs, even going so far as to, declare it Liberation Day.
Yeah, it was a big announcement,
Yeah.
likely to have some pretty far-reaching consequences. It all kicks off this Friday, April 5th, with a blanket 10% tariff applied to imports from all U.S. trading partners. So that's a pretty broad measure, going to affect a huge range of goods coming into the United States.
Right. And this is just the first wave, right? There's plans for even steeper tariffs targeting specific countries that are deemed to be kind of worst offenders.
That's right. President Trump identified 60 countries in this category, and goods imported from these nations will face higher tariff rates. This all begins on April 9th. Some of the specific elevated rates that our news team dug up include a 34% tariff on goods from China, 20% on goods from the European Union, a whopping 46% on goods from Vietnam, and 24% on products from Japan. So
Yeah.
these are not insignificant increases. They're bound to impact trade flows.
Right. And it wasn't just this kind of general across the board increase. There's also a specific tariff aimed at the automotive sector, right?
Yes, that's right. Effective today, April 3rd, a 25% tariff has been implemented on all foreign-made automobiles imported into the U.S. So this is particularly noteworthy given the size and, interconnectedness of the global automotive industry, likely to have a pretty direct impact on the price of imported vehicles for consumers.
So, what is the core rationale, according to President Trump's statements, behind these Liberation Day tariffs?
Well, the main goal he stated was to revitalize American manufacturing, reduce the U.S. trade deficit. The argument is, by making these imported goods more expensive through tariffs, domestic industries will become more competitive, leading to hopefully more production, job creation, and a stronger overall U.S. economy.
But as is so often the case with, really significant shifts in economic policy like this, there are always concerns and warnings being raised by, economists and trade experts.
Absolutely. And a primary concern is the potential for rising consumer prices. Makes sense, right? If the cost of imported goods goes up due to these tariffs, those costs could very well be passed on to American consumers, leading to inflation, a decrease in purchasing power. It's a simple example, but imagine a component in your smartphone. If that's suddenly subject to a tariff, the company making that phone might have to increase the price to cover that extra cost, which means you end up paying more when you go to buy your new phone. So there are also worries about potential economic instability and, of course, the possibility of retaliatory tariffs from other countries, which could really harm American businesses that rely on exports.
Right. And when you step back and look at the big picture, as our news analysis did yesterday, it really forces us to consider how these tariffs might actually directly impact, the cost of everyday goods for you, the listener. But also think about the relationships, these intricate relationships between the U.S. and its trading partners all over the globe. These kinds of measures can have very complex and unpredictable consequences.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, we live in a deeply interconnected global economy, and imposing tariffs of this magnitude, it's like throwing a stone into a pond. You get these ripple effects that aren't always immediately obvious or easy to predict. And, time will tell what happens. We'll need to see how these policies are implemented, how other countries react, and what the ultimate impact will be on businesses and consumers here in the U.S.
Right. Okay. Let's move on to something a little less potentially economically, upheaval-inducing. Let's talk entertainment, specifically movies and the box office. There's a new film hitting theaters this weekend, a Minecraft movie, and it's generating a lot of buzz.
Yeah, it's a highly anticipated release. A lot of people in the industry are watching it very closely. A Minecraft movie from Warner Brothers is currently projected to have a very strong opening weekend. Early estimates are anywhere from $85 million to potentially over $100 million for the April 4th to 6th period.
Wow. That kind of debut would be pretty notable, especially given that, our entertainment reporters were pointing to a bit of a blockbuster drought in the early months of 2025.
Yeah, that's right. The first part of this year hasn't seen any, really huge box office smashes. So if a Minecraft movie can hit these projected numbers, it could really inject some energy into the theatrical market, maybe bring that drought to an end. The last film to open with over $100 million was Moana 2 back in November.
So what is fueling all this pre-release excitement? What are the key factors that are driving these pretty high projections?
Well, it seems like several things are contributing to the momentum. First off, there's been a really big marketing campaign. And it's everywhere. Tie-ins with brands like Happy Meals, tons of action figures and merchandise. You can't escape it. This kind of saturation, it helps to build awareness, generate excitement, especially among families and younger audiences. Also, pre-sales for the movie tickets have been strong, which is a good indicator of that opening weekend potential. It suggests that the film could very well surpass that $100 million mark.
It's interesting because, Minecraft, the video game, it's still incredibly popular, but our news team pointed out that its overall revenue and, the number of players has actually declined since those peak years. So does this suggest a potential disconnect between the game's popularity and the movie's success?
Yeah, it's an interesting point. While Minecraft might not be at its absolute peak in terms of players and revenue,
Yeah.
it still has this enormous and very dedicated fan base. And, we've seen some really successful adaptations of video game and toy properties recently. Think of Barbie and the Super Mario Bros. Movie.
Yeah.
Actually, that one also featured Jack Black, and he has a prominent role in the Minecraft movie as well. So, these past successes, they provide a precedent. They suggest that, a strong property can transcend its original format if they can capture that essence of the original while also creating a good movie. It seems like they can connect with a much wider audience, not just the existing fan base.
Right. And what's the early buzz been like? Are critics and, folks on social media, are they all, super excited about the movie?
Well, the official reviews haven't actually been released yet. That's pretty typical before a big opening. But those early reactions on social media seem to be mixed, but, leaning positive. People are praising the visuals, the kind of imaginative, almost zany approach. But some of the comments are suggesting that it might be a bit of a mixed bag in terms of the story, so we'll have to wait and see what the critics say.
Right. And what stands out to you as particularly noteworthy about all of this? Could this be the start of a trend? More successful adaptations of games and toys?
Well, what's interesting is just how much Hollywood relies on this, established and recognizable intellectual property. Even if a game's popularity is plateaued, there's still that brand recognition, that nostalgia factor, which is a really powerful marketing tool. And the success of Barbie and Super Mario Bros. Really showed that these adaptations can work. They can connect with a huge audience, not just the existing fans. If Minecraft does well, it'll probably solidify this trend and suggest that audiences really are drawn to these familiar, even beloved worlds, especially when they're brought to life on the big screen with, all the bells and whistles.
Right. Finally, our recap wouldn't be complete without mentioning a couple of other notable stories. Firstly, the passing of, a familiar face in the world of cinema, actor Val Kilmer.
Yeah, sad news to hear about his passing at the age of 65. He was a very talented and charismatic actor who gave us some really memorable performances in, iconic films, Top Gun, Batman. His loss is a big one for the entertainment world, and he'll definitely be remembered for his contributions to cinema.
Right. And in the world of professional sports, some news about baseball salaries.
That's right. According to a study by the Associated Press, the average salary for MLB players has topped $5 million for the first time in the sport's history. So, a sign of the continued financial growth of the league and just the high value placed on those player skills in today's market.
Right. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the news from April 2nd, 2025, what are some of the big themes that emerge from all of this? We've covered a lot of ground, potential asteroid impacts to dashcams, trade wars, and blockbuster movies.
It has been a wide-ranging discussion. And I think, each of these stories in its own way gives us a glimpse into this complex and constantly evolving world that we live in. The Webb telescope's observations, it's a powerful reminder of the importance of scientific curiosity and our desire to understand the universe. The Dashcam app development, it highlights that increasing integration of technology in our lives and the potential for software to, do more and more. The tariffs, of course, signal a potentially huge shift in global economics with some pretty uncertain consequences. And then there's the buzz around a Minecraft movie. It just goes to show, the power of storytelling and these big-name brands to really capture our imagination.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Think about how these seemingly separate events, they might actually be connected in ways that we don't always see right away. Could those new tariffs, for example, end up influencing the cost of the technology in our cars, like those camera systems the Dashcam app uses? Or maybe even affect the cost of merchandise for a movie like Minecraft?
It's a crucial point, the interconnectedness of, all these different parts of our society. It's often deeper than we realize. Increased tariffs on imported electronics, as an example, they could lead to higher production costs for car manufacturers, potentially impacting those features, like integrated dash cams that we were talking about. Similarly, tariffs on raw materials or finished goods for, movie merchandise. Yeah, those could definitely lead to higher prices for consumers.
Right. And what about, we started with this asteroid. Could all that data collection and analysis, could that eventually have implications beyond just, planetary defense, maybe in fields like, I don't know, space mining, the development of new materials?
Absolutely. The more we learn about, what asteroids are made of, how they move, the better we understand the potential resources out there beyond Earth. And this knowledge could definitely influence technological advancements related to space exploration, resource extraction, and even inspire, new materials here on Earth. Who knows what we'll discover?
Right. So the big question for you today, as you go about your day, in this constant flow of news and information, what are the connections of potential long-term consequences that we might be missing in those, day-to-day headlines? What are the ripple effects of the decisions being made right now? Exploring those deeper connections is how we gain a much more informed understanding of the world around us. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see you next time.